All right. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. Welcome to our first ever online meeting. Just so everyone knows, the meeting will be recorded, so we'll upload it to our YouTube channel when we're done for anyone that misses out and wants to see what was in here. So, oh, is that clicking through? Let me just try that again. There we go. Okay, so first of all, thank you to all our affiliates, as always, for sponsoring our association and allowing our meetings to happen. Unfortunately, we had to cancel our Canberra meeting basically the week of the launch of the Canberra chapter. So anyone from Canberra, I hope you enjoy tonight. Welcome to our industry associations. All of the regulators and authorities that we rely on to do our day-to-day jobs. And welcome to our new members across Australia. So special welcome to all the guys in, or guys and girls in Adelaide and Canberra. Then also thank you to anyone that's dialed in from America or the UK, and in particular CIBSE, Sophie, the University of Cincinnati, Manhattan College, and of course Deakin University, who are sharing with us tonight. And then thank you to our corporate members, the businesses that support our association as well. A reminder that corporate membership funds are being donated towards education to support the next generation of hydraulic consultants. So any money that currently gets put in by these businesses will support the cadetship or the hydraulic diploma. Then for people interstate, we did introduce last year affiliate board members. So a big thank you to Kate Jennings from ACO, Greg Lelliott from Win Connect, and Chris Patelli from Ream for your support at committee meetings, your ideas, and just for the for what you bring to the table for us. So tonight I'll talk for 20 minutes. So anybody from outside Australia that doesn't want to hear too much regular hydraulic stuff, you're welcome to dial back in about 20 minutes. But if you want to stay, you're welcome to stay. So 7 o'clock, we've got our water demand update with Brendan from Deakin University, and he'll be presenting the monitored flow rate data taken from our 4 residential buildings that we've been monitoring now for anywhere from 3 months to about 6 months, I think. 2 in Sydney and 2 in Canberra. And then after that, we'll have about a 15-minute, 10-minute education update on the delivery of the revamped hydraulic diploma online, and also the cadetship that we've launched. And then we'll have a lucky door prize, which will be one of our HCAA caps, and I'll post it out to whoever gets the lucky door prize. Okay, so running through our committee report. So for anyone that's a new member, this is what your membership certificates look like. They can be accessed via the member portal on the website, and we've got a CPD certificate, and we've also got a member certificate. These are emails we've sent out in the last 2 months. So Canberra meeting cancelled due to COVID-19. We had a member update email that had about a dozen different things in it. The Competent Fire Safety Practitioner Scheme that's been postponed until the 1st of July, which is New South Wales specific. Standards Australia draft for comment for ASNZS 5601.2. An alert from the ACCC on supplying and installing bidets, which apparently has been happening a lot when there was the shortage of toilet paper. People were installing illegal bidets. Standards Australia publication 5601.1, 2013 Amendment 3. I won't rattle them all off, but you can see there has been a fair bit floating around. So if you're not getting the emails, some people have accidentally unsubscribed. So you need to go back into your settings and resubscribe. But if there's any emails there you didn't get, feel free to get in contact with us and we can re-forward that through to you. So this is a quick photo for you from when we went to Canberra just before Christmas to meet with the ABCB and talk about what we're trying to achieve with the data that we're collecting from these buildings. Yeah, the main speaker tonight, I don't know if you can see my mouse at all, but Brendan's standing next to me in the picture there. So he'll be presenting for us tonight. So this is just a reminder, we've got a LinkedIn page, the HCAA members page, and we will quite often post little bits of information here. So this one is an example where the New South Wales government in their education guideline added in about 6 months ago that a TMV must be located a maximum of 6 meters from the outlet. So these are little things that standards are always changing, and yeah, they can easily slip through the cracks. So if you periodically check that LinkedIn page, we'll put information like this up there. And if you see stuff yourself, feel free to share it, because that particular one got sent to me from Enware. So anybody's welcome to post that information on the LinkedIn page. So this one here, H2X, our next meeting, we will have a presentation from H2X. So this is one of our own members, has developed this software for pipe sizing with a bunch of other developers. I'll just click this button here and you'll see a little video playing there of how the software works. Basically, you use it through your browser. You load the PDF of the job you're working on, and then you can go in and pipe size and change between different standards. I won't run through it all, but yeah, we'll be sharing more information on that next meeting. And then I'll just show you a quick little video now on this as well. I think it goes for about a minute.
Does an empty calculation folder sound familiar to you? How about drafting errors from unclear design markups? Or are you spending too many hours on a project? Introducing H2X, the digital transformation of plumbing engineering. An opportunity to revolutionize your workflows. A choice of innovation, or that is the way we have always done it, by following these simple steps. Drawing lines that represent your pipe layout. Stamping fixtures or nodes. Locating valves. Adding plant. And auto-connecting where required. You receive the following results. Pipe size is based on the chosen maximum velocity. Pressure loss through valves, fittings, and pipes. Hot water return pipe sizing, circulating pump duties, and balancing valve kV values. Pressures and dead legs at fixtures, including design warnings. And all results are professionally exported for your QA records. Industry-leading companies trust H2X, and they are already seeing the payoff. H2X is showing to take less than 27% of time comparatively. So, choose to work smarter. Choose to empower your team. For only $29 per week. Choose H2X.
Okay, so there you go. That was a little bit of a preview of the software. One of the things, I've used it on a couple of jobs now. One of the things I like is with where we're heading with the water research that we're doing, the ability to switch between different international standards for pipe sizing and compare the Australian standard to an overseas standard. And depending on, some of the data that we're going to collect over the next 6 to 12 months, I think this kind of software takes us to places we haven't really been able to go before in a really fast and efficient manner. So this one, just for all the affiliates out there, we were planning, if we had this meeting face-to-face in Sydney, to have Stoddart come along, and they've got a new new toilet suite that they've released for prisons. The plan was to have a live demonstration as our CPD session prior to the meeting, put on some safety goggles and see if you can break this toilet. But because we weren't able to do this, this is Stoddart's opportunity to showcase a new product that I think is very creative. And if you're an affiliate out there listening and you've got a good new product that you think would interest our members, please share it with us while we're stuck in this environment of online meetings. So hope you enjoy the video. All right, so thanks again to Stoddart. If you guys want to get in contact with Stoddart about that, just send us an email and we'll pass on the details for the representative in your state. Okay, so this one for the people in Sydney, I apologize, you would have seen this. Did put it on the LinkedIn page as well, but just a reminder that the version of the gas code that you use in each state is determined by state law. So in most states in Australia, as soon as a new gas code is published, it's automatically adopted.
Don't forget about the territories.
Pardon?
Don't forget about the territories.
Oh, the territories. Oh, where in New South Wales, we didn't adopt the 2013 version until the 1st of January 2019. So we used an older standard for about the 2004 version you can see there for about 6 to 7 years longer than pretty much every other state in Australia. And I think New Zealand is the same as New South Wales, where they don't automatically adopt the latest version. So if you're designing interstate, make sure you're aware of what the rules and regs are in that state as far as gas standards go. Okay, so the next one was the performance solution templates. Pretty excited to get these out to all of the members. So these relate to box gutters, eaves gutters, valley gutters, flat roofs, and water system pipe sizing. So an email went out with a link to download them from the website. So obviously you can see the diagram there from the BCA or the NCC, whatever you want to call it. Standard process would be deemed to satisfy, which has an X over it in this case, and we're following the performance solution method. And if you have any comments, suggestions for improvement, let us know. And those documents we will likely put on the website as a live document that we will update periodically to make sure we're keeping up to date with the any changes within the NCC. And the other thing we've made quite clear in there, it's New South Wales specific, that particular document. There will be slight variations in each state. So it's 99% there, but you will likely need to make little adjustments depending on where you are in Australia. The next one was we did pay for those documents to be created with members' money, but we have also made them free to anyone in Australia. So if you live in another part of Australia and you want access to those documents, just get in touch with us and we'll share them with you. Okay, so Rod's going to touch on this after the meeting, but yeah, the diploma is relaunching in July this year, delivered face to face. The cost is around $26,000 to complete. In New South Wales, you get a subsidy of about $18,000, and the plan is with the cadetship that we will cover the difference. And what we would like to do is eventually push for federal subsidies so that no matter where you live in Australia, you can access the subsidy. But at the moment, we can only achieve so many things voluntarily, so that's on our wish list. So the cadetship, so there's 3 positions available. They are available to anyone in Australia, and again, Rod will touch on this in more detail.
So sorry, Nick.
Yep.
Just to go back a couple of slides, I just wanted to clarify because I'm not sure. Are you saying that the alternative solutions are free for everyone to use, even for stormwater downpipes and gutters?
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yep. So.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thanks, mate.
Okay, no worries.
Is that members only?
No, not members only. It's anyone.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So grease arresters. Sydney Water have released a new. Sorry, I should be reading from this screen, so I'm looking at you all. A new food industry pre-treatment guideline. So the rule used to be the depth of the grease arrestor, you have to have the same clearance above the grease arrestor. They've now reduced that to 1 meter. And we have sent an email out, or about to send an email out with a link to that document. So thanks to Bert de Kaiser, if you're in the room, for sharing that with us. And yeah, hopefully that helps a few people out on their next job. Okay, so this one is a bit of a curly one. It's popped up now on 3 jobs that I'm aware of in the past couple of months in New South Wales. Now that I've mentioned it, it will probably pop up elsewhere. So I apologize for bringing it up, but it's important for those people who are currently designing to be aware of it. So in a non-sprinkler protected building, all hydrant brackets must be fire rated. So this has been in the standard for about 20 years. It just hasn't really been enforced. It did come up about 5 or 6 years ago, disappeared, but now it's back again. The brackets must be tested in accordance with AS 1530.4. A lot of brackets are fire rated. They just haven't been tested in accordance with that standard. So it's a technicality in that unless it's tested in accordance with that standard, you can't install that bracket in accordance with the code. So there's two solutions that I am currently aware of. So they're just popping up now. There is one fire rated bracket that we're aware of, which is this one from Protector Pipe, which you can contact Reese Plumbing. They stock it. I believe you have to mix up a slurry that pours into that little bracket. You can see in the image on the left, that pair bracket, you have to put this massive big thing over the top. So that could be quite costly on a job. Another method is down here, which I'm aware this job was about $12,000 to get the vermiculite company to come in and spray all of the brackets with what looks like pigeon poo to fire rate those brackets. And then the other alternative is to put in a sprinkler system to sprinkler protect every bracket. So just be aware that clause exists. And if you want any more information on that particular bracket, get in contact with Reese Plumbing, or send an email through to our inquiries email address, and we'll forward you more information.
Do you know that AS 1530 doesn't actually even have a test process for bracketing systems? So it's really a defunct clause in AS 2419. We brought that up in the last standards review or draft review, and there wasn't really much action or really an outcome.
Yep. I put that inquiry through to the fire brigade and to a couple of the committee members that sit on 2419, and the advice back from the fire brigade, this was 2 weeks ago, was that it is possible to test to that standard, because I know you inquired with 5 bracket manufacturers. It is possible to test to that standard. It's just no one's done it. But I don't know, that contradicted the advice that you got from the 5 different manufacturers that you contacted, in that they said that they can't test to that standard. So I don't really know.
And that was also from the author of 1530 as well, stated
Okay.
that there is not a test method for brackets to demonstrate, 500 degrees for 60 minutes.
Okay. So we might chase it up with the standards guys again to see what else can be done. But in the meantime, these methods here is all that's available to us until we can possibly get the standard change, which could take 10 years.
Nick?
Yep.
There is a, what they do use now, they use two 10 or 12 mil Booker rods individually tested with the uni strut that's individually tested. So the two individually tested systems combined, they tend to be allowed because they both individually have certification, but as a package, they don't. So what they do is they provide the individual Booker rod and the individual uni strut. And they do two Booker rod down and then they hang it on top of the uni strut.
Okay, maybe you can email me some details on that, and we can send some options around to members.
It sounds like everything should be noted in a fire engineered solution, though, to be safe, not sorry.
Correct.
Yep.
And it has to be accepted by the private certifier. You'll find that the certifier won't accept separate certificates either. I've had that in a couple of cases.
Okay. All right. So this next one, we put this up at our last meeting. We did get a letter from Sydney Water advising that they wouldn't accept the FPAA 101D system. About 24 hours later, we got another letter advising us that they've retracted that letter and they will accept it. So this is just a bit of advice to make sure you check with your local regulator that they are happy, because some of the regulators weren't fully across the detail of this particular system. It's that toilet metered while the rest of the apartment is metered. Is this telling me the default microzone have changed? Oh, hopefully people can still hear me. Okay, so we'll skip past.
Hey, Nick.
Manufacturer this standard.
Nick, you're dropping out, Nick.
Yeah, Nick, you're going missing.
You got me now?
Yeah. Just back on your last slide there.
Can you hear me? Your default speaker has changed.
You're able to turn off your video and just keep your screen with the Prezzo.
Yeah, I'll try that. Stop video. Is that better? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So.
Oh, no.
As you vanish.
No.
He's just in and out at the moment.
Maybe if I unplug this. Your microphone is not working. Okay. Oh, there we go. Is that working now?
Yeah, I can hear you, but the screen has changed.
Yep. There we go. Can you see this? Oh, share screen. Okay. Share.
Yeah.
Okay. I think back up and running now.
Yep.
I think, Nick, with the 101D fire sprinkler system, I think that'll be an interesting challenge in some of the states where there's specific requirements for fire practitioners to undertake installations and not plumbing contractors, because given that it's coming off a toilet system, it really is a bit of a cross between two very independent and very separate trades there. And
Yep.
who knows where in the world the certification actually lands between two of them. One's supplying some pipes, the other's supplying pipes and wet sprinkler heads off those pipes. It sounds like a fraught with danger.
Yeah, so there was guidance. I don't know about other local regulators, but in New South Wales, Fair Trading did put out a guideline last year stating which elements of that system are plumbing work and which are which elements can be installed by a fire sprinkler fitter. So it's a mixed system. But if you go to the Fair Trading website, if you are working in New South Wales, they give guidance on who can install which part of that system. But it is it'd be interesting to see where it goes, I guess, as far as certification of the installation and everything as well.
Yeah,
So,
I think keep fire with fire and plumbing with plumbing. It probably keeps it simple.
Yeah, and then another thing we were advised of, that it isn't in their current metering guideline, but I think someone contacted me yesterday to say that it may be going in. But again, this will be each local regulator. I live in Newcastle, so there's nothing within Hunter Waters guidelines on this system. So it'd be interesting to hear what's happening around Australia on that with that particular system.
We also do have similar sort of process where we have a combined fire hydrant sprinkler system. Typically, the plumber will do the rising mains and all the legwork, and the sprinkler fitter will do the on the floor connection to the sprinkler. So it does happen. It is occurring, but it just needs to be finalised.
Yep.
The split.
Yeah, hi Nick. It's Nick Lucero from Rehau here.
Oh, hey, Nick.
Look, we've been doing quite a bit of research on it, obviously, because PEX pipe is part of the standard now as well. And look, we're finding every state is starting to have a different spill on it. Mm-hmm. Queensland are more of a retraction against it at this stage still. South Australia, I've spoken to the OTR, and they are putting out an advisory note very similar to Fair Trading New South Wales, to try and get the jurisdiction to who should be putting in the sprinkler heads and who should be doing the plumbing side is still obviously very very confusing. So, but look, speaking to some fire sprinkler fitters at this stage and speaking to plumbers, the plumbers are a little bit scared to do it, and the fire sprinkler fitters are scared to know that plumbers are going to be doing the work.
Hello, it's Rob Knowles here from the Office of the Technical Regulator. Good evening, everyone.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, Rob.
Nick, you're right on the money. We are in the final throes of an advisory note to be released, and it's quite clear that the sprinkler fitters will do the sprinklers, and a licensed plumber will do the hook up to the toilet. So, and that's going to be outlined quite clearly in the advisory note, which is only very, very short, only days away, I would imagine.
Okay. All right.
I wonder what happens when I decide to renovate my apartment, which has a 101D system in there, and I isolate the water for a month because I'm messing around with moving toilet cisterns and whatnot in the wall, and in turn that isolates my sprinkler system. What degree of risk resides there, given that
who's responsible?
Construction work being undertaken, which probably increases the likelihood of a fire event.
They got different takeoff points at different locations. I'm positive when the FPAA technical committee reviewed it.
Hello, yes, it's Rob Knowles. Yeah, there's an isolating valve on each floor.
All right. Well, we might, because we're running overtime. We'll come back to this one again at the next meeting, or maybe we can organise a separate little roundtable discussion on that one. But I know I think Sydney Water is still discussing it internally, as I'm sure a lot of authorities are. So we'll keep everyone updated on any more changes. Okay, so this one was, you probably started to break up before, but this was a prototype room I looked at for a job in Newcastle, a hotel. We realized that the floor waste opening was smaller than the baffle for the acoustic floor waste. in this instance, this particular brand of floor waste is the Rehau one. The baffle could be trimmed on the sides at the top there in that photo, over here, if you can see my mouse. And we could get it down to 86 millimeters. So it's just small enough to be able to remove the baffle. But it's just a precautionary note that if you are specifying acoustic floor waste on your job, to check what the floor waste are the architect has, so that that floor waste can be removed for cleaning, or that baffle, I should say, can be removed for cleaning. And this included graded drains. So whilst your opening might be 100 mil, underneath the grate itself, I looked at about 5 or 6, and they all measured around that 88 to 89 millimeter mark. All right, hopefully that worked out all right for everyone. It wasn't too long, but thanks for sending in your photos. I rehashed some of the ones from the Sydney meeting because since this COVID thing's come out, I think I only got a couple of photos in. But thanks to Brad Freeburn for sending in this double testable check valve through. I think there'll be slightly higher friction losses on that job or pressure losses than most. So I'll post a hat out to you, Brad.
Were they all since the last meeting?
No, they were played at the last meeting, other than about 3 of them.
Okay.
Yeah, I rehashed them because I didn't get many this time because everyone's been in lockdown, so there haven't been many photos being taken. So,
yeah.
All right. So that will wrap this up, and I will just switch us across to Brendan. I just have to figure out how to do this now. Brendan?
Oh.
I had this working before. Brendan. Oh, here we go. I need to stop sharing first. That'll work. Brendan. And why is it not letting me?
You can request that control, Brendan.
Right, yeah, I'll give that a go.
Yeah, I'm right clicking on your name, but it's not letting me. There we go. Beautiful. Perfect.
No worries. Thanks, Nick. Well, thanks everyone, and thanks for giving me the opportunity as well, Nick, to present tonight. So I'll get things started. So I'll just go through a quick rundown of the format of the presentation, and then we'll get into some introductions to myself and my supervisor, James Gong. So basic outline, just a quick introduction, a few acknowledgements for people that have supported me through the project. Give a quick rundown on how the partnership sort of came about, and then also a few of the objectives of the water demand investigation. Then we'll go into some results and also then move forward into some supporting research that we found around the world and in the country to sort of validate the results as well, and then follow through with some conclusions, implications, and then some future work as well. So, and at the end, there's also, I think, about 10 minutes allowed for questions. So if you have a question or anything's unclear, just keep it in mind and we'll hold it to the end, or you can contact myself or James or Nick via email if you want to find any more information. So I'll start off with myself. I'm Brendan Josie. I'm a civil engineering undergraduate at Deakin University. I live in Bendigo in Victoria, which is a small regional city about 2.5 hours north of Melbourne. And my project supervisor is James Gong, and I'll actually pass you over to him and he can give you a quick rundown of his expertise and what the uni can also offer. I'm not sure.
Thanks, Brendan.
Yep.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Just you might be a little bit quiet.
Oh, okay. I'll speak loudly.
Yep.
Hello, everyone. Well, firstly, would like to thank the association for giving us an opportunity to present today, and also the ongoing support from the association and also, the team involved in the water demand investigation. I'm based at Deakin University in Geelong. I have been working on water pipeline related research for about 10 years, but most of the work has been on water distribution systems. So I've been working with water utilities a lot. And before I joined with Deakin, I was with the University of Adelaide and also South Australian Water, and working on the Smart Water Network project. So upon joining Deakin, we have started some work on plumbing systems, and we realized that the plumbing systems can be more complex than the water distribution systems sometimes. So Brandon and I have started the work with the association from, I think, September last year, and we've made some preliminary results. So today we're going to share with you the findings. And Brandon has been very diligent and talented as well. So I will, leave this to Brandon to talk more. Okay, back to you, Brandon.
Thanks, James. Much appreciated. So firstly, just a few acknowledgements. Really can't thank the association enough for the support. There's only so much a textbook or, I guess, limited research papers can offer. Nick and Johnny and a few other members have been more than helpful in answering emails rapidly and supplying me with design knowledge, design information, different standards. So it's really, brought the quality of my final year project up to the next level. So for that, I'm very, very appreciative of. And also probably secondary is Brent Ladbrook from Equip. In the beginning, there was a few sort of monitoring issues, and he sort of had to duck around between the buildings and organise the monitoring and make sure that it's all back online and up and running. So thanks again for being pretty rapid in getting back there, and so we can have the data to analyse. And then just a quick one for James again, for all his support and his ongoing support. We can't really thank him enough for, and I really look forward to continuing the work relationship with James in the future. So basically, to make it a little bit more interactive to start with, so it's not just death by PowerPoint, try and initiate a poll within the chat. So hopefully Nick or Emily can get that up and running. There we go. So what percentage of time would you estimate the typical plumbing system operates under its peak conditions? So we'll give everyone a little bit of time to put an answer in. we got a fair number there. I'm not sure if anyone's got their mics on, but we'll move forward as well. So just to give you a quick background of how the partnership sort of came about, in July last year, we began the project based on limitations to high-rise plumbing design. Through our literature review, we came across some of the pilot study results that was presented on the association's LinkedIn website. And then initial discussions, we sort of found we had a common interest. Nick sort of alluded to the fact that being a volunteer association, potentially they were a little bit hamstrung for time. And that's sort of where Deakin offered, or we offered our services, that we had a bit more time. Obviously, I could focus on presenting the results and going through and organising all the data into a presentable format for the association to obviously replicate and put out towards industry. And down the bottom, we've got the subcommittee with Nick, Jonathan, Daniel, Aaron, and then James and myself. So just a quick overview of the water demand investigation. Currently, there's 4 buildings that are being monitored. 2 are in Sydney and 2 are in Canberra. All this data is open for public access. And it's pretty much just a matter of going directly to the association, sending an email, and you can get the credentials to log in and pull the data down. So the project aims, the key goal here basically is to assess the suitability of AS 3500 and how efficient it is in actually estimating probable simultaneous demand, which is the peak hydraulic demand for those who are joining us from other countries. And then also to develop a stronger understanding of the water usage in Australian high-rise or multi-level residential buildings. And then obviously, as Nick sort of alluded to, with the future vision of the project, with improved design practices, reduce the cost and plumbing system efficiency. There's also probably potential there for improved water quality with Legionella, lead, biofilms. And then this information will hopefully aid in the development of performance-based solutions, and then eventually hopefully update the Australian plumbing codes and standards. So just to give you a quick overview of the buildings that we're monitoring, one's in Waterloo, Sydney, New South Wales. I'll give some context to their location in a few more slides. But to the right we have, I'm not sure if anyone should be able to see the mouse. So to the right I have a basic plumbing layout. You can see we have 3 towers, consists of mainly 1 to 3 bedroom apartments and approximately 1,300 fixtures. And using AS 3500.1, the estimated PSD is about 9.83 litres per second and a velocity of 1.25 metres per second. Moving on, we have another building in Sydney, Milson's Point. Fairly similar in its structure, has two main risers and 1 hot water storage unit. And then we can see just to the left, number of fixtures. And again, it's fairly similar in the studio, 1 to 3 bedroom apartments. Typically with this building, there's the same amount of bathrooms for each bedroom. Moving on to the Canberra buildings, we have a larger apartment scale of the Manhattan building in Canberra, has 330 apartments and around about nearly 3,000 fixtures. And you can see that obviously with AS 3500, the estimated peak flow rate is quite high, which would result in a velocity of 2.3 meters per second. And it's probably worth mentioning that this building was designed under a performance solution. I'm not sure if the cold water plumbing was, but I know that the other side of it is the sewer network was. And it's also worth probably mentioning that this has gym and pool associated with it as well. And then we also have a mixed use building in Braddon in Canberra. Consists of 5 levels, 2 of which are for an office space. The office space mainly consists of sinks and toilets as the fixtures, and then above that, the 3 levels above, we have the residential apartments, where there's approximately 115 apartments and 860 fixtures. So just to provide everyone some context for those that maybe aren't familiar with Australia so much. So to the left, we have the Sydney buildings, Waterloo, well, they're all north of the airport, obviously, but Milson's Point, just to give a reference, is adjacent to the Sydney Harbour Bridge. And then to the right, we have Manhattan and Braddon, which is located fairly central to Canberra. And if we have a look to where my mouse is hovering here, this would be the approximate location of Parliament House this is our home capital state, I should say. To give you a quick overview of the methodology of how the flow rates were obtained, we have an ultrasonic flow meter installed onto the main cold water residential pipe. The data logger then sends this information via a GSM network to our cloud, which is where the information is stored on the website. The data or the flow rates are acquired at 5-second intervals and then logged at 1 minute averages. And then from there, we download all the data and arrange it into a format that's usable for analysis. The data was analysed for the peak flow rates, average flow rates, building water consumption, the daily usage pattern, and we've also considered the impacts of COVID-19. It's obviously a hot topic at the moment. We've also looked at the flow rate frequencies and the different varying states of flow that the building's subjected to, and then also conducted a comparison of the results and other plumbing standards around the world. Current limitations with the project are associated to the building profile information. So we don't have information about the occupancy levels as far as how many apartments or people are living in the buildings. There's also limited information on the fixture efficiency ratings, and then also potential socio-demographic factors that can contribute to water usage in residential buildings. Another key limitation is the data acquisition. So at the moment, we're logging 1 minute average values at 5-second acquisitions. This is to enable a long-term monitoring period. As you can see to the right here, we've taken a sample of some 15-second data, and you can see that as you extend the time period, potentially the true peaks aren't captured because it's average data. So this is something we need to look at in future to try and obviously firm up and confirm and make sure that our data is actually logging accurate flow rates. It's not to say at the moment they're not accurate. It's just there could be, with finer intervals, you'll see more accurate peaks because fixture usages, typically their events may be from 15 to 30 seconds, say a toilet flushing or a quick tap use, and the minute interval may be too far apart to properly capture these. When looking at similar research from other papers, they found that the logging frequency at around about a minute affects the results from about 6 to 33%. So jumping into the results, you can see the Waterloo, 145 apartments, the peak flow recorded was 2.3 litres per second, which is 23.4% of the flow that would be predicted using AS 3500.1. Milson's Point, 119 apartments, peak flow rate 3.1 litres per second at 35% of AS 3500. Manhattan, 330 apartments, peak flow of 4.6 at around about 25.3% of AS 3500. And then Braddon with a mixed use is 2.35 litres per second at 28% of the predicted peak flow rate using AS 3500. It's worth noting too that the peaks, and then you can see the average daily peak, there's still a considerable difference in relation to those, and it'll be more sort of relevant as we move through the presentation why that is. So based on the potential errors associated with or limited information with the 1 minute logging, allowing for about a 35% correction, AS 3500 or the flow rates were between 32 and 48% of PSD using AS 3500.1. A quick analysis of the average monthly building water consumption was conducted. So you can see there's a fair bit of variation initially. You can already see potentially with the Waterloo building with the red line to the right here, there's a fair drop over from November to December. We believe, although it hasn't been confirmed yet, there's a number of international students that reside in this building. So potentially they've gone home or gone back to their original countries for, say, holiday periods, and then potentially haven't been able to come back due to travel restrictions and that of COVID. Of course, this is just speculation at this point in time, and it needs to be confirmed at a later date. You can see that most buildings sort of show a bit of variation between their monthly consumption, but it can be seen that the data sort of agrees well with the average usage. If we look down to the bottom here between Sydney and Canberra for litres per household, this data here takes into consideration outdoor usage as well, so there's probably some allowance for that, but it sort of suggests that what we're collecting is the data is fairly accurate in that sense as far as water consumption. We've also looked at the daily usage pattern and the behaviour of the buildings and their flow rates. So the typical residential building saw a sharp peak in the morning around about 6 to 9 a.m. And then as you move into sort of the evening, around about 5 to 11 p.m, you have a more flattened peak and a reduced consumption during the middle of the day. And this is strongly correlated with the, say, bathroom, shower, toilet use in the morning, and then before and after sort of work and school hours. Interestingly, the Waterloo building, which again was the building that had the international students, showed a shifted pattern, and the peaks actually existed at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. during the day. So it's a little bit different, which I'll show in a second. And then Braddon, which is a mixed-use building, displayed less prominent peaks. And that's obviously because there's probably increased water usage through the middle of the day. So just to give you a quick rundown of what these charts are displaying, we're looking at the maximum, average, and minimum values recorded for a specific time of day over the whole monitoring period. So as I alluded to before, you can see the Waterloo building, the peaks are around about 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. And then Milson's Point displayed probably a more typical daily usage pattern of a residential building. This was the same for the Manhattan building. And then obviously over here with Braddon, you can see that you had a slight increase as the morning hours came before sort of work, school, and then it sort of plateaued across into the evening and then drops back down, obviously. So just to give a quick overview of the potential impacts towards the water consumption in the buildings due to COVID-19. Looking at the Google and Apple baseline data, we can see that we've been driving, walking, and using public transport a lot less, and we've also been spending a lot less time at workplaces and a lot more time in our houses. Interestingly, we can see that the peaks aren't as prominent in the buildings, and we believe this is because the fact that you're not restricted to potentially having to shower at a specific time and get to work on time. With more people working from home, you're potentially more flexible in using a shower or bathroom in that manner. Interestingly, though, the average flow rates of the building were increased, as we can see by the light sort of orange line here. And we believe that obviously potentially there's more water being used during the middle of the day. And then buildings also displayed an increased water consumption over it, probably around about 30 to 40 litres extra on average per apartment. We also looked at the flow rate frequencies, and this is broken down into the percentage of the recorded peak flow rate for each building. So we can see that the buildings here are typically very rarely subject to peak conditions, and about 98 to 99% of the flows recorded were less than 60% of the recorded maximum. So to put that in context, for example, the Manhattan building in Canberra, which has 330 apartments, the peak flow rate for that building was 4.6 litres per second. For 98% of the time, all flows recorded were under 2.8 litres per second. And then again, if we break that down further, about 70 to 90% of the flows were less than 30% of the recorded maximum. So we can see that from this chart here, that the buildings are very, very rarely subjected to a peak and spend a lot more time at lower flow rates. Just to give a quick comparison, to the left, I've done a quick case study based on an apartment with one common area, which has a kitchen sink, a dishwasher, a washing machine, and a laundry trough, and also assumed 2 bathrooms. So that would equal 2 showers, 2 toilets, and 2 basins. So we've got one US standard up the top here. And we'll move into the UK standards, or older UK standard, I should say, the SIFI low use, which is pretty comparable to AS 3500. Below that, we have the new IAPMO water demand calculator. And then below that again, we have updated UK standard BSE and 806. And then below that, we have the German standard DIN 1988-300. I've also sized each building in accordance with the case studied plumbing codes, and you have the results here to sort of where the measured data matches up in relation to the rest. So we can see that the measured data is still, other than the DIN standard, it still sits a fair way below all the other international plumbing codes. So it's probably suggesting there's an international trend as far as overestimating peak hydraulic demand. Just to go through and highlight a few supporting research articles that we've discovered through the project. So internationally, there's a numerous amount of studies that have confirmed that a lot of the international plumbing codes overestimate peak hydraulic demand. So this is in the UK, USA, Brazil, Belgium, Netherlands. From Australia's point of view, I believe this is the first public investigation as far as studies that have been conducted into measuring multi-level residential water consumption. And then also we can supplement our data with residential end use studies, and they conduct and investigate the indoor and outdoor fixture usage of single or detached residential dwellings across Australia. So just a couple of examples of the supporting research at an international level. So we can see here the findings from the Lunar project conducted by Heriot Watt University. They did a fairly extensive case study of 14 residential apartment buildings of varying sizes. As you can see from the results, you can see that a lot of the codes they've completed a case study with overestimate the peak hydraulic demand. Moving to the US, there was a fairly significant investigation into monitoring 43 buildings, all with various usages, and believed to have water-saving fixtures. So of the 43 sites monitored, 29 of the sites could have had a smaller pipe size and not violated the plumbing code velocity of 10 feet per second or 3 meters per second. Coming back to Australia, so we can have a look at the data obtained from residential end use studies. These studies install what's called a smart water meter and a logger at the residential property. It's then connected to specialized software or event recognition software that can separate specific usages taken through the frequency of the smart water meter. And to the right is an example of the different events logged by the event recognition software. And then this can obviously provide real-time data usage of a household's water usage habits. And we can use this to sort of develop behavioural patterns at a residential level and also conduct with supporting information such as income levels, household size, household or family makeup, and that sort of information can then expand and then determine what actually impacts water usage in residential buildings. Some additional supporting research as to why plumbing codes potentially overestimate peak hydraulic demand. For those who aren't familiar, the foundational methods were actually developed in the 1940s. And while the research conducted wasn't necessarily wrong, the research was based on the monitoring of hotel buildings, which may not accurately reflect fixture usages in residential buildings. Moving forward from that, obviously over time, plumbing technology has improved, and we have increased adoption of water-saving fixtures. We have a look at the first figure here on the left. There's a comparison between two Perth residential end-use studies. And if you concentrate on probably more the first 4 items, you can see that front-loaded dishwashing, front-loader washing machines, efficient shower heads, dual flush toilets, and dishwashers have a higher adoption rate between the two studies over the 10-year period, which have led to reduced water consumption. And then to the right, if we have a look, one of the residential end-use studies actually did a comparison between the 50 most and the 50 least water-efficient homes within that study. And you can see, obviously, the green line here has a fair effect in reducing the peak consumption throughout the day compared to the least efficient homes. And then also from an Australian point of view, for those who aren't familiar, we've probably had a fairly big shift in terms of water usage due to the millennium drought. And this has resulted obviously in behavioural shifts and also regulatory shifts to implement those water saving initiatives. And you can see here to the right, it's an example of that, basically showing a timeline of Sydney's water usage over sort of the last 20 years. And you can see as a total water demand, it's now been reduced by about 200 litres per capita. So to conclude, the study so far shows that AS 3500.1 overestimates the PSD in residential buildings. And then also we can take from the information that the plumbing systems are very, very rarely subject to the peak conditions. Some implications obviously to this with an overestimated peak hydraulic demand promotes oversized systems. This leads to increased construction costs, elevated energy consumption, potentially pump duty points are incorrectly selected, leading to low efficiency pump operation. And then obviously if our pipes are oversized in the hot water systems, require more energy to maintain temperatures. Moving from that, there's potential for reduced water quality due to the low flow rates. The lower flow rates, there's potential for an increase in the water age, which has potential to then have less residual disinfectants. Lower velocities also potentially allow for increased biofilm growth, which can then give home for Legionella and other pathogens to develop in the biofilm. And then additionally to the other implications mentioned, have a greater risk of premature failure of plumbing, hardware and fixtures. This is essentially because the valves or water meters are not subjected to the required or designed velocities that was first thought the building would be subjected to. And there's also research that suggests that the flows are low enough or not high enough to properly cleanse systems from built up air. From the future work, the intention is to continue monitoring the buildings and then also obtain better building information as far as occupancy and the fixtures. Look more deeply into the Australian and international residential end-use data. Running alongside the project as well, we'll probably produce a report for the Australian Building Code Board. And then it's the intention also that we'll submit the findings of this investigation for peer review and publish in a academic journal. And then hopefully if all goes well, we'll conduct and move forward with a PhD and a research degree into early 2021. And then further from that, there's probably, I believe Nick has the intention to move to monitor different systems, and that might be hot water systems and then healthcare. So yeah, it's not just limited to residential and cold water. There's the intention to move it to other building types. Some future considerations for the industry. So a lot of the research to date has a pretty strong focus towards peak flow estimation. And potentially a lot of the research maybe fails to consider what the effects would be of a plumbing system when the size does eventually become reduced. At the moment, flows are currently so low that transient events or pressure surges might be masked. As the system size reduces, it's pretty evident that the pipe flow velocity will obviously increase, and higher velocities will be more frequent within the system. This will result in or a need for a stronger consideration but towards the unsteady state of flows and transient events to make sure that the systems are safe and not subjected to any major pressure surges. And moving on from that, I think that's about it. So question time, really. I'm not sure how we want to manage this one, unless I guess basically go through and potentially nominate in the chat and then move from there. I'm not sure, Nick, if you want to provide some.
Yeah, I guess people can either type something into the chat or they can just jump in and talk to you.
Yep, that's fine.
So, yeah.
Hi, it's Greg here from Wing Connect. I'm based up in Brisbane, but I'm the National Hot Water Manager for a company that literally sells hot water into multi-storey high-rise.
Yep.
There is some potential that we may be able to join with you guys on some up-and-coming projects in the next 6 to 12 months that are currently moving ahead, where we can do this in Queensland because, of course, our temperatures are warmer. That's why I'm sitting out here on my balcony, unlike probably most of you Southsiders. But we're going to be installing some ultrasonics for hot water meter reading on several sites coming up here. So I'd like to have a chat with you offline about that. And in talking about COVID-19, yes, we've seen a large peak in hot water usage, and it hasn't occurred in the normal morning peak. It's happened at other times, and of course, people are now complaining that their hot water usage is too high when their bills come through. But yeah, it's certainly changed the dynamic of water usage in Australia while people have been sitting at home.
Yes, no, that's I'm sure. Yeah, Nick would be excited to obviously collaborate and obtain that data. I mean, yeah, from our point of view, we're always welcome to getting more information and improving the study. So yeah, thanks, Greg. Much appreciated.
Brendan, I've got one if I can jump in. Look,
yeah, go for it, Rod.
Presentation and thank you very much for the research. In terms of this COVID effect on the data, given that's not representing what we would call a normal scenario, has that changed the longevity of how long you're going to keep the meters in? Have you looked at saying, all right, well, let's add another 6 months and hopefully things will sort of go back to that normal scenario?
Well, first, and I probably should have mentioned this in the presentation. So the data I presented, except for the COVID specific, I actually deliberately put a cutoff date onto the 14th of March, which is when, or the day before we all went into lockdown. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we haven't really discussed too much between the association's point of view of sort of the impacts and what it will do. Because, I mean, as you can probably appreciate, we don't know if this is the new normal. Mm. So, I mean, it's sort of uncertain times for everyone. So it'll probably, it'll dictate, I guess, to some extent. But I don't think there's any short-term plans to remove these meters. So I think they're going to be in for a fair while as well. So there should be continued monitoring of both scenarios.
Excellent.
Yeah, what we've seen, guys, is sorry, guys and girls, is even though there's been a large increase in usage, it's been heavily spread over the day compared to the very high peaks of the morning. So I don't think this will really affect your studies at all.
So if I just jump in from the discussions we have had, we own those water meters. So from talking to Brendan and James, and you know, they're the experts in how to collect or how to study this information. But I think Brendan, we agree that probably keeping those meters there for 2 or 3 years would be ideal, so that we can see seasonal peaks over a few years rather than, because one of the items discussed was we could relocate those meters to other sites, but the ideal scenario would be to purchase more meters for the, you know, the hospitals and the aged care facilities and whatever we want to study next, so that we don't just collect 6 months or 12 months of data. We can actually analyze the data over 2 or 3 years. But that was what I was going to throw in from what you discussed before. And then we've got a question here as well from Stephen Bushberger, who, if I pronounce his name correctly, so I believe he's dialed in from the University of Cincinnati. So he was just asking when the buildings were constructed. So maybe we need Rod to comment, but I'm pretty sure most of them would have been built in the 90s, Rod?
No, look, Lachlan Street was I want to say late 2016.
Oh, okay, so it's actually really new.
And 88 Alfred would have been about the same, maybe slightly after, possibly early 2017.
Yeah, the ACT buildings are around the same age as well.
Okay, so they're all less than 10 years old.
Yeah, I think initially when the request went out for those sites, it was trying to find things that were relatively new, so that you knew they had decent wells fixtures in them, not using 15-litre flush toilets and so on.
Yep. Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. It's David Wood here. Have we compared the billing meter to the metering that we're doing to see if it's similar?
No, not at this point in time. And I think the idea's been floated. And again, it's probably something we should conduct and compare the data basically to see that what we're capturing is accurate.
Or if the water meters are actually accurate.
Well, it depends. I mean, there's the different school of thought. That study that I spoke about in the US, and Steve's probably the expert because he was one of the authors on that study. So, but they found that a lot of the water meters were actually oversized on most of the buildings in that study.
Yeah, but our meters are calibrated.
Okay.
Is that right or not? The meters.
Our meters are calibrated. Yeah. But the difference too is they're clamp-on meters, so they work off. I think it's off sound waves versus a mechanical meter that has a little turbine in it that's spinning. And I think the mechanical meters, from what I've read, are less accurate and can sort of wear over time as well. But we did discuss, I think it was only yesterday, we did discuss getting copies of the water meters for each site and comparing the water consumption on those bills, or the water bills, to what we've collected. And then the other thing we've discussed is going to the sites and collecting 1 second data, which the reason we went with 5 second is it wasn't possible for us to do 1 second via the cloud. So we understand from the meters we've got there that we can actually go and collect about 2 weeks worth of data at 1 second intervals. And then Brendan can then analyze the 1 second results and compare them to the 5 second or 1 minute sort of results that we have at the moment.
Brendan,
Wind Connect might be able to help you out there, Brendan, because we've actually got some data in regards to mechanical pulsing meters versus our meters on our hot water plants, to say how accurate the individual meters are compared to a single meter on the hot water plant. So I might have a chat. I might have a chat with you next week, because we can actually help you out in regards to accuracy.
No, that'd be really appreciative. Thank you.
So, Brendan, just one more.
Yep.
Are you looking for more residential sites?
Well, that's probably up to Nick. That's he's the brains trust, and the association's the one that's obviously funding it all. We're just the data analysis at this point in time. But I imagine, and looking at some of the residential end use data, a lot of the states have different consumption patterns. So typically Melbourne properties seem to use a lot less water than, say, Sydney or Canberra. So it probably would be beneficial, looking for other sites across the country.
And then if I jump in, so the limitation for us is people providing us with access to sites. So it took us, I don't know, probably about a year to get access to the first 2 sites, which was through Rod, who's been commenting now. And then Brad Williams gave us access to those sites down in Canberra, which was when I got in touch with Brad about 6 months ago. So that's all we really need is people in other states, because ideally I'd like to see a meter installed in an apartment in every state of Australia, and then we can compare all the states around Australia. The cost is around about $5,000 per building to do. $5,000 to $6,000 to buy the meter, commission it, and then have it linked to the cloud. So that is obviously dependent on how much money we have in the bank. And then the other thing that I think I mentioned to everyone at the Sydney meeting was what we want to do is support Brendan going forward. He's been volunteering his time at the moment through Deakin. But what we'd like to do is support him through his PhD, which was around about $35,000, which we'll discuss with all the members, to $35,000 a year to keep him going on this project. And then really to do that, we also want to purchase additional meters so that Brennan can look at more sites as well. So that again will be, how can we get this money? Can we crowdfund around Australia? But you know, instead of wasting $100,000 on some sort of stupid legal battle, we could be spending $100,000 on valuable information that will really benefit the hydraulics community. So that's where I'd like to see money spent in the future. We got a question here about fixture unit loadings, that this data would suggest fixture unit loadings are incorrect. I think that would be a natural assumption. On that, I can comment that the ABCB have engaged someone. So Tom Roberts is probably here. He can probably jump in, but they're paying, I think it might be Lucid Consulting at the moment, to prepare an analysis of fixture unit rating in Australia and how that can be improved. So there is, there are investigations happening in that space as well. And then hopefully this information can feed back to them as well, to support in there. And then Tom, he's getting me in trouble. Tom's getting me in trouble because I forgot about the territories again. So, we'd like to get a water meter in the Northern Territory. We do have 2 in the ACT, so we do have one of the territories covered. But yeah, Brisbane, Melbourne, Adelaide, Perth, Hobart, you know, I think to get water meters in every state would really be a great thing to happen. So, yep.
I think it'll be quite interesting.
Hey Nick, it's Tom from the ABCB.
Hey Tom.
Thanks for the little plug. So we've finished our work with Lucid and we've moved on to the next stage, but it is a good opportunity for me to plug a bit of work for the hydraulic consultants in the chat. But we're intending to release an approach to market very shortly on the next stage of work. Basically looking to make it easier for hydraulic consultants to size using another international sizing methodology for sanitary drainage and sanitary plumbing. So we'll obviously send that through the association out to the membership and seek input from the different consultants in that space.
Mm-hmm. No, that'd be great. Thanks for the update.
No worries.
Did you have something, Tom?
I was just going to say, it'll be interesting when we start further reducing pipe sizes to see how that actually affects the peak hot water demand, because arguably an undersized hot water plant might be quite disguised by oversized pipe work.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a good point. And then the other question would be in regards to velocities. Brendan had that slide up earlier from, the American study that talked about they size up to 3 meters a second. We know that the Australian standards allows pipe sizing up to 3 meters a second, obviously depending on the temperature of the water and everything else. But everybody in Australia always sizes to under 1.5. So are there areas that we should be considering raising the velocity within our designs if that's what's happening internationally?
I'd just jump in, Nick. I did a bit more of a digging, and their code's obviously pretty similar to ours as far as the limit.
Yep.
But they also follow a similar design methodology and try and limit the velocity for certain pipe materials. So it probably is fairly similar at 1.5 for copper pipes and that sort of
internal to buildings.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right. Well, we might save any further questions for outside of the meeting. You can email questions through, and I'll forward them to Brendan, and then we'll jump across now to Rod to let him give everyone an update on the diploma. So if anyone's dropping out of the meeting now, thanks for dialing in. It's been great to have you along, and if you want to hear about what we're doing with education, then stay tuned, and Rod's going to give us a 10-15 minute update. I think you'll have to claim it.
I will share my screen.
Yep.
All right, thanks, guys. Look, that was very impressed with that last presentation. Thank you very much. In terms of education, I just wanted to run through what we've been doing and probably show you a couple of little examples. Given we haven't shown you much today, we've just been talking about it. In terms of TAFE, look, we're going quite well. It's not to say there haven't been ups and downs. We have had a few writers that have sort of come and gone, mostly based on their own experiences and their workloads and things like that. Suffice to say, I think we're past halfway in terms of all the courses that are currently being delivered as part of the diploma, and we're still really hoping to just probably even push the momentum a little bit more over the next couple of months, given we're still looking for a July 2020 start date. So what I've got on the screen just there at the moment, look, that's just an example of the topic notes that we'll be providing to the teacher. So this started out as a very, it was largely intended to just be basically some key topics and maybe a sentence or two, or maybe a paragraph about each one, which was a lot less than what we'd love to do, but that was what the funding allowed. And for some of them, it has kind of developed a little bit more based on the hours. So if I just sort of scroll down there, I mean, it's a really starts looking at regulations, documenting specs, definitions, commonly used phrases in each discipline, pipe supports, materials. So this particular topic notes that I'm looking at is for the sanitary drainage subject or unit. Looks at some of the basic things like pumping stations, rising mains, venting, air admittance valves. And at the moment, that's pretty much what the teacher is going to get, and they will be expected or required to develop these into actual, sessions online and in the classroom. So my hope is that once we sort of at least get this whole course up and running, and this is very much the start point, I'd be really keen to actually get more funding available through state government and maybe develop these a bit further so that they're a much more comprehensive set of course notes that can be handed over to students and help them into their careers. One of the other things I wanted to show you was an assessment. Oh, sorry. haven't got it open. My apologies. Please bear with me while I just open one up. Oh, sorry. So largely for the major design for each of the, sorry, it's telling my, can everyone see that? It's telling me my screen sharing is paused.
Yeah, it's not showing it, mate.
Oh.
I can't see it.
What's that?
Yeah, that's good. We got you.
So, look, this is a standard format TAFE document. There is a lot of stuff in here that is structured by TAFE. Talks about, you know, making sure there's a declaration for each student that's saying, this is my own work. I haven't copied it from my buddy. This is probably an example of what we've been doing, and this is the basis of what the guys and girls, I should say, are being asked to design. You know, so for this one, an example, there's a 30-story residential tower, a 30-story commercial tower over a floor of retail and a couple of basements. So they've got to design the sanitary systems for those. The resi tower can either be an RVAS or a PAPA system, and the commercial is fully modified and some single stacks for kitchens. So the point there is, you know, we're asking them to design a variety of systems and make sure that they understand everything that's in the standard. And of course, that goes into making sure they've got provisions for all the retail tenancies, the car wash bay, the water feature, air conditioning and stuff like that. So it gives you a bit of an example of, so all that stuff in red is things that we've added. Anything that's in black is sort of part of the standard TAFE document. So we ask them to, you know, typically with these major designs, they're going to do a specification. And what we've also done for TAFE is we've provided a standard, very basic specification. It is by no means complete, but at least gives the guys and girls a bit of structure on what they need to do in a document. We talked to TAFE about that. They were okay with it in the fact that if a junior walks into a consultancy office, rarely would they be asked to prepare a specification from scratch. So they didn't have any issue with giving a student a template. We've also done the same sort of thing with a really basic budget estimate, a basic, what was the other one? A return services brief. So there's a few things there that are just tools that we're working, in addition to doing the course notes for each unit, tools that TAFE can give to the students. One of the other things that we've looked at with TAFE is what they call their Moodle. This is a website platform or web-based platform that is where a student can log in and obtain all their assessments or their course notes. They've got access to things like AutoCAD and Australian standards. And what TAFE have asked us to do is, at the moment, we've just given them a really kind of, well, an extensive set of links to a variety of websites to start with that are either interesting videos, Australian standards, NCCs, legislative documents, all those sorts of things. So TAFE's going to put those into the Moodle, and then the students will be able to access all of those things. So in terms of delivery, we will be running the diploma and the Cert 4 as of July 2020. TAFE's going through final hurdles of that right now. We don't know exactly when enrolment information will be available, hoping it'll be sometime sort of mid to late June. And that should be suitable, hopefully, for an intake or commencement of the diploma and the Cert 4 subjects by late July. To help us do that, we do have 2 new writers. So I'm very happy to say that Jim Burns is helping us produce the gas subjects. Jim's been involved with TAFE for many, many years as a teacher. And really, I think, has only stopped teaching on account of the fact that we've now got to have this TAE to be able to do that. So he's going to help us prepare the gas subjects. We've also got a guy named Andrew Taylor. He's going to help us out with the sewer infrastructure, and he's going to write that unit for us. Paul Smith and Scott Harris continue to write. Daryl Isles has done the cold water subject, but is choosing not to continue. And Michael Labib is just taken on a couple of extra units, so he's now looking at the hot water, and will probably proceed into a couple of extras as well. So thanks to all those people that are involved. The cadetship. So in terms of the cadetship, we've now issued, I guess, our information about the cadetship, and that's been distributed through LinkedIn and also been issued to all the people that have shown interest to date. So we've had a lot of interest through the HCAA website, with students asking us how do they find out about it, what have they got to do, when is it. So I'm really happy to say that this has finally been issued. All the details are in this particular PDF that's on the screen at the moment. If you haven't seen it and you're interested in the cadetship, please let me know. The time is kind of, well, not running out, but the main part of the application is for the prospective cadets to write us a 1,000-word essay on why they should be the cadet. So that is due as of 1st of June. I've seen some trickling in already to my education email, but if anyone is still interested, then by all means forward this document to them or ask me to send it to them, and we can sort that out. So as Nick mentioned earlier, we've got 3 this year, which is absolutely fantastic, I think, for the first year of it. Reem and Vega have been very generous in helping us out with that and sponsoring a student over the 4 years. They've also been very, very generous in sort of providing some extra merchandise on top of what the HCAA was providing. So I think, whoever are the successful candidates, will be more than happy to get a little bit of merch. In terms of diploma discussions with the TAFE colleges, so I did do one out at Randwick TAFE 2 months ago. Previously, or before we went into isolation, I had 4 set up for Granville. They've currently gone on hold purely because the classes aren't running just yet. But Jim Peppers out there I've been emailing him last week. We're going to try and do a similar delivery as we're doing tonight, maybe a Zoom meeting or something similar, so that I can still kind of promote it with the Cert 3 and the Cert 4 students. On the mentoring, I know we've talked about it in our New South Wales meeting before, but if there are other, I guess, experienced consultants around the country, then it's open to anyone. This is a scenario where if a prospective or someone that takes on a cadetship, or even someone that is not necessarily a cadet, but studying the diploma, but they're not working for a consultant, the HCAA is offering some mentors to help those guys. Typically if you're in a design office, you can go into work and say to your manager or your boss, go, hey, I've got this assignment, what do I do here, how do I do this? A lot of those guys that aren't in a consultancy office don't have that. So the theory would be that you'll get a mentor, and ideally that mentor would stay with that student throughout the 4 years of their course. TAFE will keep your details. In terms of a commitment, TAFE expects that the student would have up to 200 hours with that mentor over the 4 years duration. So that ends up being less than an hour a week, which is not huge in my mind. And most of that, it may not necessarily be face-to-face. It might be over a phone call, could be an email here and there, just to help provide a bit of guidance. So I've got 4 people already that have given me their name. If anyone else is interested, please let me know and we'll add you to the list. In terms of promotion of hydraulics, another thing we've just done is there's a Step in the Right Direction magazine that's being produced by News Limited. That is going to be issued in digital and hard copy. The digital should be ready in the next couple of weeks. The hard copies will probably be later in the year on account of COVID, but it is basically for careers advisors to help students out in terms of where they want to go, what they want to do. So we've got a 2-page advertisement just promoting hydraulics in general. There is some mention in there for cadetships and all the contact details. So just rest assured that, like Nick said before, where our corporate sponsorship money is going purely for education, these are some of the things that money is being used for. So really recommend anyone that is thinking about being a corporate, I greatly appreciate it, and we'll make sure we use that money as best we can. Another area that has come up in the last little while is specialist presenters, which is probably more for our affiliates. Now, initially there came a question from an affiliate, and I've talked to TAFE about it. They're more than happy to have affiliates come out and maybe do a presentation for an hour or so to students during the delivery of the diploma. I've currently got 4 on there, I think, on a list, and more than happy for any of our affiliates to contact us. Obviously, it's certainly not just an advertising spiel about your latest gear, but if it's technical and is going to teach the students something, then they're more than happy to include that. I think it's great in a lot of ways. You probably take a little bit of pressure off the teacher, and a little bit of extra expert information on the night. So far we've got Sydney Water, Trade, Waste, Germanar, Fire and Rescue, New South Wales and Studer have all expressed interest, so let me know if you want to be added to that. TAFE has progressed the opportunities for some of our people wanting to study the TAE. They've interviewed 5 people in the last couple of weeks for scholarships, and hopefully those details will be out soon, and those consultants will be able to get into that TAE and do it for next to nothing. I did want to talk about the CIBSE collaboration. So the vast majority of that is complete. We're just sort of putting final touches on it, but it's going really well. And what's even better is the hydraulic guys are beating all the other disciplines. So we've been getting some good kudos in terms of the information that we've been providing, and putting the mechanical and electrical guys to shame, which is nice. This is just an example of the spreadsheets, you know. So it's really trying to teach their construction managers and coordination services managers on site, particularly with builders at the moment, on the basics of hydraulics. We are not teaching them how to design. We don't want them to know how to design in that respect. We're just trying to show them what things are, what they're called, so that they get the terminology and some of the limitations around things. You know, it delves into coordination around services in hospital. Like that's a photo of a hospital, for example. Things that should and should not be done. And actually a lot of the sessions are wrapping up with somewhat like Nick's Dodgy Photos Awards, and got some examples of, particularly for construction managers, things that they should look out for. You know, UPZs up at high level, shown in that one. No fire collars. That's a photo of a inspection opening in a hospital, which made me cringe a little bit. But you know, I think it'll be really good to be able to pass on this information to construction managers and make sure that they have a better understanding of the hydraulic systems. We're hoping to do a bit of a dry run with CIBSE in a little while, probably in the next couple of weeks, that's been affected by COVID, obviously. So we're sort of playing that by ear a little bit. Look, that's all I had, Nick. I tried to keep that short and sweet because we sort of run over a bit. But yeah, if anyone's got any questions or any concerns about education, let me know.
Thanks heaps for that, Rod. That was really good. Yeah, as Rod said, if anyone's got any suggestions, if you want to get involved, just get in touch. I'm just jumping in here. Is that? There we go. Okay. And yeah, I just wanted, I suppose, a big thank you to Rod for all of his effort in this space to get the cadetship happening and to get the diploma back up and running, because it's been, was it now, Rod, about 3 or 4 years in the making? So it's
3 years that it hasn't been run.
Yeah, so it's taken us a long time to get here, but yeah, it's paid off. So looking forward to seeing who we get through
and look, really quite excited about the interstate and internationals, because while Queensland had the online course, so I guess ours is somewhat different. Theirs was very much an online course that was studied at your own pace. You know, read the text, do the exam, so to speak.
Yeah.
This is slightly different, being that it's that blended delivery. It's offered face-to-face in North Sydney, and everyone else dials in through Microsoft Teams.
Yep.
I think there's probably some benefits into doing it that way, and I think that the students will be able to take on a bit more, given they're still in a classroom environment, even though they're remote. Like you said earlier, we're still going to have to work on this whole subsidy thing for the other states, but
yeah,
at this stage, it is going to be the only diploma offered in the country, so hopefully we get lots of interest.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for that, Rod.
All right.
I'll skip past that. So for our lucky door prize, I don't have a way of spinning the barrel or any of the stuff that we normally do at meetings. So I'm just going to shout out to Lauren and Stephen from the University of Cincinnati, because I've noticed they got up at 5 o'clock this morning, or 4:45 over in America, to dial into this meeting, and they're still here now from what I can see. So we'll have to arrange to post a couple of hats over to them. Moving on from the Lucky Door Prize for the next meeting. So we've basically postponed all our meetings until September due to COVID, face-to-face meetings. I did hear rumors that Adelaide might be opening up sooner than other states, because they're cleaner than the rest of us. So we will see what happens there. I've got a TBA next to that, but we're still planning on having another online meeting in July. So any feedback on tonight's meeting, it's the first time we've ever done this. Let us know your thoughts, and hopefully it worked out all right. So we'll see you in a couple of months, and thanks for tuning in.
All right. Thank you.